Let's play. I've got a little video to play. Hang on. Where is it?
You're listening to Achtung Millwall, broadcasting from the beautiful South Birmingham. Accept no substitute.
Oh, the wonderful power of TV production, dear viewers. This is live television. Wow, this is interesting stuff. Neil, welcome to the show, mate. I thought I'd join the vloggers and the video artists out there and go with a herd, mate. Just get with it. How you doing?
Yeah, not too bad, mate. Not too bad. Yeah, what could possibly go wrong with all of this?
Everything could go wrong. I'm like a first-time driver, listeners, behind the wheel of a car. I've never sat behind it, and I've got like an array of controls and whatnot in front of me, and I don't really know what I'm doing, but I do have some content for your hopeful entertainment tonight. I want to say a big thank you for Neil Fissler for joining me at pretty short notice with very little prep. So a big thank you to Neil for doing that. What I've done, listeners, I thought as it's the purgatory, Neil, of the international break weekend that's come upon us very, very quickly, it seems, just as we were starting to get the season going. We're now got to stop. I thought we could maybe fill in a Friday night and hopefully act as a warm-up for all the other shows that are probably going to kick off from 8 o'clock onwards. I'm like the first comic on the stand-up comedians routine night, aren't I?
Yeah, the warm-up for the main event.
Warm-up for the main event come later.
Yeah, we are live, and but that's encouraging that we haven't ballsed it up at the first attempt.
Well, I'm hoping that people are watching out there. I think they are. We've had one response. Big thank you to Matt Richards there, who's actually sent me a question. Now, this was going to be I've prepped up some Millwall content from the days gone past, international flavour, dear listeners. I will be putting this out as a podcast, incidentally. So when you're out and about next week, you can listen to this. I'll try and edit it so it makes a little bit of sense. But we've had a question here. It's quite a good question, actually, Neil. We'd start off with this just to kick us off. Neil, Matt's asking about the role of football manager. Obviously, we've got a head coach in Neil Harris, and the relationship with the director of football, which is Steve Galland and Neil Harris, which has had a few little, frictional moments this season already. Is it time, Matt's asking, is it time that directors of football communicate with fans too? Or is it just for the head coach to do all the press conferences? It's a good question. I think the problem with the whole setup is it flies in the face of English football's tradition, doesn't it? I mean, the manager you think of the great managers, you're thinking of names like Ferguson and in the past, the Shankleys and the Cloughs and so on and so forth. And they controlled everything. They were both the football management and they did the deals. And I know there's dangers with that, but they were the face. As it is, and we're not alone in this. It just strikes me that we've got a bit of a split of responsibilities, and there's opportunities for others to take the rap for other people's failings. Do you agree, or is that being simplistic, Neil?
I think it's slightly simplistic, to be honest with you. You
bastard!
Yeah, well, you look at the football there are around. But that's reel off some of the big names. Dan Ashworth, do you ever hear from him? Very rarely. Taxter, I think he is the guy at Man City. Do you ever hear from him? Unless it's on. Not unless it's on Amazon Prime or something like that. I think. I think that what Millwall have to do is they actually need Jimmy Berylson to get Harris and Gallen together and to smack together and say, right then, you two have to get on the same page. There's no if, buts and maybes. This is the way we are now doing things. And if you don't like it, well, you know where the door is. Yeah.
Do you know what? I wonder whether that was the underlying message of that open letter. It's a good open letter, listeners. It's on the club website. But I mean, in a nutshell, it was almost setting out the club's philosophy going forwards, Neil, wasn't it? That we are, as we always have been, I think as many clubs really are, but it's just saying it. we find talent, hopefully cheaply, good talent, and then we sell it on when we have the chance at a profit. And so we advance, and so we move on. And I think that just sets out the stall for everyone concerned. I just wonder whether that point about that's the way it is, get along with it, whether that was underpinning that letter.
Yeah, I think that Harris knew he was on fairly safe ground with most of the criticisms, because I think they were shared by a lot of fans. Like our transfer window until that last week wasn't anything to really write home about. I think the way we're now doing things is the right way of doing things. If I was Harris, I would be grateful that he doesn't have to go out scouting players, and he doesn't have to deal with agents, and he doesn't have to do this, that, and the other, and he can just focus on managing and coaching a football team.
That's an interesting point. It's an interesting point.
And the way that football is now, if you've got the likes of Manchester United, Manchester City, even though I cannot stand Guardiola because I think he's ruined English football with his playing out from the back and everybody wants
tack. Yeah.
But well, that's another thing. But you look at the way bigger clubs are doing it, and this is the way that it's going. It has become too big a job now. There's too much money involved. There's too much at stake for it to be a one-man band.
It's funny. I went to the cricket the other night at the Oval. I was walking through the Oval, and there was a busker. I was at London Bridge. Sorry, the busker was at London Bridge, and it just two things connecting your mind. The busker's got like a tap your card arrangement, so you can pay your tip to the busker, no cash, because nobody carries cash anymore, Neil. So you tap your card if you like his music as you walk past, and £3 was his charge. But it just struck me that the day of the old brown paper envelope found behind the service station for the certain old school managers is probably passed, because now it's all electronic transfers, and that leaves a trail, doesn't it? So I don't know why that occurred to me as you were talking, but I suppose that's another burden relieved, temptation relieved from the modern football manager, that you don't have that chance of payments on the side in that way, in that old fashioned way, if you like.
Well, there's still ways of doing that. Yeah, well, let's be honest. Yeah, well, will that way, but it's actually true. I think that Harris knew that he was on safe ground, so whatever he said, he was going to get the majority of the fan base backing him.
Yeah,
and he wasn't wrong, and something needed to be done, and hopefully they can sort it out. I do think it's one of the problems with having an owner in Boston.
Yeah, removed.
He's a bit away from it, and he's new to it. I don't think it would have happened under his dad, to be honest. I think that JB would have found a way of getting everybody together, and that's what Jimmy's got to do. Jimmy has to find a way of getting everybody together, because, well, let's face it, this international break is as frustrating as hell, because on the back of probably one of the best performances we've had in a very, very long time, we don't play for 2 weeks.
No, it's a dig. I suppose it helps with the recovery of Mihailo Ivanovic and his toe, which has been a very strange little saga. It resolved, obviously, as everyone watching will almost certainly know, by his withdrawal from the Serbian national squad. Last week, presented to the fans of the Den. Then, lo and behold, he's got a metatarsal toe problem, apparently. And then next thing, he's out there training with the Serbian national side. No longer. He's come back. But I posted on Twitter, Neil, that they had the potential to be one of the strangest Millwall soap opera storylines ever, really, because thankfully resolved now. But it just seems so much to pay 2.5 million euros, pounds, whatever. And then he seems to be neither injured nor fully fit. It's a very odd Millwall situation.
I'd heard, I don't know how true this is, that he didn't know he was injured, and then he turned up at Millwall, had had a scan or an X-ray, and it was actually Millwall that picked up on the injury.
Right.
He just thought he had a sore foot from playing, and it's unfortunate. The good thing is that Coburn really hit the ground running last
Stepped into
week.
the breach. I thought he looked really good, really,
Mate,
really quick.
that was probably one of the best debuts I think you will have seen from a Millwall player for many, many, many years.
I agree. I was trying to think of an equivalent, debut impact, but it reminded me of at times, as we've said on other shows, of the young Richard Sadley out in his prime, because he had that kind of physical impact on the game, but also the ability to control the ball with his feet, which wasn't the impression that I had gained from the Middlesbrough, fans that I'd had some contact with, because they just seemed to see him as a bit of a lump, like a tall guy that does nothing up front. But we certainly saw a side of his game. There's an interesting question here from Mark Murphy. Thank you, Mark. I'll put this one on the screen. I wonder how much of this disagreement, says Mark, was real. Harris obviously needed players who were ready to go as soon as possible, and Gannon probably has a remit to buy for the future. And then he carries on the next post. Was this outburst more to appease the fans rather than to shoot at the backroom staff? I didn't get that impression. I thought it was coming from the heart. Whether it was right or wrong is another question, Neil. I got every sense that Neil Harris at the pitch at Ashton Gate was fuming, and I didn't get any sense that there was anything pre-planned or any kind of Machiavellian purpose to it, other than just in losing the plot, probably in the wake of an unnecessary defeat. How did you see that?
I think we did a live after that, or we did something after one of those games.
Yeah,
and that was shooting from the hip. There wasn't anything to appease the fans. He was genuinely frustrated. I don't think Neil Harris is the kind of person that will come out and look to score brownie points with the fans. He knows he doesn't need to. He could commit all kinds of heinous crimes, and the vast majority of our fan base would back him forevermore.
I think he's straight down the line. I think he says what he means and means what he says, which is to his credit. I don't. Just my own. I mean, who knows? You don't see inside anybody else's head in this life, Mark. But at the end of the day, I don't get that sense. I think it was, as Neil said, coming from shooting from the hip, as you put it. I think that was right. Whether it was wise or not, I don't know. Whether these deals would have happened, but for his outburst, I don't know.
Nick, I think that Neil Harris could walk around Bermondsey with you and Bill slacking a West Ham shirt and get away with it, mate. Yeah, even if it wasn't for charity, to be quite honest.
I don't go on the House of Fun. Apparently we're getting slagged off on there for doing it. It's for charity. It's so that you get more money. It's the hook. That's why people will enjoy seeing your discomfiture. That's what you're getting for a very good cause. Anyway, I don't want to dwell on all that. That's
I think we should plug it, actually, Nick. I think that as we've got the platform, when is it, and how can people donate?
We're walking from the Den on October the 14th, Sunday morning. I think we're probably going to get there early if we can. We're going to both be wearing West Ham shirts, and the reason for that was that when this charity appeal for a youngster. A 14-year-old boy who plays in the West Ham youth system. He's a goalkeeper, but he's been diagnosed with brain cancer, tumour, and it's a serious situation. The family have taken him to France for braking treatment. I don't know enough about that treatment to know what but anything to do with the brain is going to be a risk. So you've got to feel for any family in any situation, irrespective of their allegiances, where their son is in that kind of condition. So we're doing this walk. There was a GoFundMe appeal, nothing to do with me or Bill. It's a family's GoFundMe link. I'll stick it on the posts. It's on my Twitter account, and I'll stick it, repost it again after this show. They're asking anything people can donate. The target was 100,000, and they've actually blown that away. And I'm hoping that part of that impact is the idea that, as I've said to the Southwark News, Neil, that two lifelong Millwall fans will put on a West Ham claret and blue shirt and walk from the den through the Coldblow Lane through to the Greenwich Foot Tunnel, then through the Isle of Dogs various sites, the old Millwall sites, then up to the London Stadium. The intention is to get as much money as possible. In my experience, what little I have such things, families normally need a lot more money than they anticipate. The target was 100,000. I think they're on about 120 when I looked the other day, which is brilliant. We've gone through the target, but I can see every probability they're going to need more. So any help, any donations, really, really welcome. And yes, I will put pictures of myself and Bill in our claret and blue, Neil.
I think it's worth that. I think Dave Sullivan, my old boss on the Sport, gave 10 grand. I think it was
10,000.
Declan Rice has made a sizable donation, and so's Robert Snodgrass.
I saw that
the other day.
It's a terrific cause. I mean, if you read the GoFundMe account that the family put on there, it's hard not to be moved by that. So that's the reason why we're doing it. If it upsets anyone, the fact that I'll stick on a claret and blue shirt, it's just a t-shirt. Listeners, anyone out there that is upset over that, it's a t-shirt. That's all. I'm going to go to Sports Direct. I got rid of the last one. I did one with Bill for Little Isla a few years ago, and I thought, well, I don't need that anymore, and I got rid of it. Gave it to the clothes bank. So I've got to go and get another one. But anyway, that's what that's all about. So any help appreciated.
Yeah, I think that somebody offered you about £1,000 or £100 on off if you burn it afterwards.
I thought burning it was a bit strong. I gave it. There's a clothes bank round here. I live over on the other side in East London, so I thought we'll give it away. Someone can use it. It was one of the number 6 old retro shirts. I got it out of Sports Direct, but I gave that away some years ago now. So I've got to go and get another one. There we are. So anyway, welcome to the show after our little intro. Big thank you. Do post any questions, and we will talk about current issues as well as some of the history stuff that Neil and I have put together. Mostly me. I bounced Neil into this a little bit, so a little bit, a lot.
I had no about this show until about 3 o'clock.
It was about 3 o'clock. Oh, Neil, I've got a great idea. Do you fancy it? But I've been playing with the possibilities of StreamYard, which is the system that we use to do these videos. So it's international break, listeners. So I've put together 2 slideshows. One featuring the only full international featuring England. Certainly played at Millwall. That was England 3, Wales 0 in 1911. The second one is a list of our main international players. There's too many to have everyone on a list. It would be here all night. But so I've got a second one featuring some of our main international capped players, a selection, not all of them. So I'm going to try and press our first slideshow. I need a kind of there we are. England Wales. Monday the 13th of March, Neil, 1911. It was a 3:30 kickoff. I'm going to guess that was Monday afternoon. I don't know if the Dockers would have been available for a 3:30 kickoff. Had 22,000 people in the Den. It was the only full international featuring England ever played at the Den. I selected this just really for that reason, because it seems as it's international break, nothing going on. I thought it might be worth having a quick look at this fixture. First thing that struck me, Neil, was obviously the Coldblow Lane was only opened, I think it was in October of 1910. So it was quite an honour, wasn't it, for the club to be given the full international, home international, within a few months of the new ground opening, just about 3 or 4 months afterwards.
Yeah, of course, Wembley would have been,
1920s, so yeah.
That would have been a decade away. I think we had quite a close relationship with the FA back then.
Yeah, the ground was opened by Lord Kinnaird, who was, I think he played in the very first FA Cup final. He was the FA president, so he actually cut the ribbon on the Coldblow Lane, the Den, and they called it the New Den then. So it was quite a tribute, and then to be given this international just a few months later was quite an honour for the club. There's a picture. This is from Lions of the South. We will come back to Lions of the South by James Murray. There's a picture of the Welsh defence in front of the halfway line. No roof on it, as we can see there, Neil. Still familiar, even though it's 1911. You can still see that for those of us that were lucky enough to be going to the old ground, you can still see it's the Den. And there's the English attack. It would finish 3-0. I have a wonderful press report of the time. It's in a newspaper called the Morning Leader, and it refers to an extraordinary match versus England versus Wales, played at the Den. 3 goals and 2 snow blizzards at Millwall. It was an extraordinary game, says the Morning Leader, where England beat Wales by 3 goals to love. There's a strange expression, 3 goals to love. So this was written in 1911, obviously. Until England scored when the game was 70 minutes old, it was anybody's match. And then it goes on. There was a snow blizzard, 2 snow blizzards in the first half. It says, it's not often that we see 2 blinding snow blizzards in one afternoon. The game commenced in fine weather with a chilly north wind blowing and suddenly changed to hail and then snow. We had a terrific 10 minutes of snow in the first half, followed by sunshine, and then another fierce storm of snow until the ground was reduced to the consistency of fine grease. Fine grease.
It was a bloody weather report, not a football match report.
This is a weather report. Those out in the open, that'll be those fans that we see in that picture there, listeners. And apologies to those that listen on the podcast. You'll have to visualise the old halfway line terrace without a roof on it. Those out in the open had a dreadful time with the wind and snow driving at hurricane pace in their faces. Such is the fascination of football, Neil, that scarcely a man forsook his post. It sounds like a military report now. It was a feat of endurance to withstand the storm, and there must have been over 20,000 present. And there it is. That was the first international. Reason I mention James Murray, author of the definitive work in a way, apart from Neil's Who's Who, of course, of Millwall history, is that he bid for the shirt. One of the Welsh players, Vizard, playing for Wales, swapped an English shirt, and it came up for auction. And there it is. He paid £4,000 for this original 1911 from the game shirt. And I've got a little zoom in on the. Oh, that's the teams. You can't really read that, unfortunately. But that's you can see there the badge and the old kind of cream white shirt worn by one of the England players who'd swapped with the Welshman, and it came up for auction. £4,000, Neil. It's quite a find. And that was by James Murray, author of Lions of the South. I can just about see him there, James Murray.
I would say that he's probably going to tenfold his money on that at least, if he ever wanted to sell it. And it's not the kind of snow blizzards and feat of endurance you generally have to withstand in the upper toilets these days.
Oh, very good. I like that.
Yeah, but when you were so long, well, actually had so long. I thought of that, but no, with Ted Vizard played for Bolton Wanderers. Actually, the guy that Vivian Woodward, who was he was one of English football's first superstars, I think, scored.
We did a show mentioning Vivian Woodward, one of our history shows.
We did, and we also mentioned, I think, Robert Crompton,
Yes,
the Blackburn player. But it was it would have been a bleak afternoon, wouldn't it? It would have been an full afternoon.
It reminds me of going. I went to Barnsley a few years ago. That was a bit like that, sunny, and then it went grim into cold and snow up. But that was up north, so certainly when the wind blew along Coldblow Lane, it lived up to its name. Mark's asking, was the glass factory behind that stand? I don't remember a glass factory there, Mark. That's behind there. When I was going, the road there still is called Mercury Way, and it was kind of semi-industrial. I don't remember a glass factory around the back of the, but it looks like there's a chimney over the back there, possible.
I think the glass factory closed in the 1940s. Am I right? 50s because there was I think Millwall originally bought the glass factory with the
Right.
view to expanding the ground. But as to where it was, I don't know. Obviously, I'm far too young to remember where it is.
Yeah, no, it was predated me. I have seen the Greyhound Stadium when it was still in situ. They demolished most of it gradually across the 70s and then the 80s. It became just the current park in the end, grass mounds, where you can just about see some stands there in an oval shape. But it was certainly there when I was there. But I don't remember a glass factory. But I never really went round that side of the ground. So outside my range mark.
Yeah, it had been long gone by the 1970s.
Yeah, but there we are. It looks like there's certainly a chimney of sorts over the back there. So there we are. That's the first of my two spreadsheets. Look at that. So you see the directorial abilities there. Now I just take it away and I can bring in the next of our international-based spreadsheets, which is Mills Internationals, 1897 to 2024. And I've selected that, as we've said a few times, it's International Break Weekend. I thought it might be quite nice just to have a look through a selection of some of our international players over the years. And 1897 is particularly relevant because that was the year of our very first international cap. I'll come back to that. That was this chap here, Joe Davis. One cap for Wales in 1897. That's him playing for, I think that's an Everton kit. I found the only picture I could find for him, Neil, was on a Toffee Web Everton history website. And I do have a few details from the work of Mr. Fissler himself in front of us, and that's the Who's Who book, which is that Joe Davis played for us 1896 to 1898. So this would be in Southern League football, listeners. 54 games, 28 goals. That's quite a scoring rate. At that era, I think, Neil, and I haven't checked this, but I think we were a championship winning side, 1895 to 6, and I think 1896 to 7. I think we won the Southern League as Millwall Athletic. So we've been very much part of that. Joe became Mill's first ever international when Wales selected him to face England at Sheffield in March 1897. He was an adaptable player to fit various roles in the forward line and operated in all 5 positions for Millwall in his first season. A strong shot. He funked 6 goals in a 9-1 defeat of Wolverhampton in the Southern League in October 1897, which is still a club record for any league match. Whilst at Sheffield, I love this story. This is what I like about your book now. You've got these wonderful little storylines in here. Whilst at Sheffield United, he fell foul of the club's officials by taking lodgings in a public house and later became a clay getter. And there's 2 things there. The fact he was lodging at a pub meant he fell foul of club rules. I guess they don't want you drinking, I guess, or might be some kind of, anti-alcohol thing. And the clay getter is a job I've never heard of in my life. That is a wonderful little account of a wonderful player. Joe Davis, our very first international in 1897, listeners.
I presume a clay getter is somebody that works in a clay quarry or something like that. And
he gets clay. He gets clay, almost certainly.
Dig it out by hand. I can imagine the back-breaking work. He doesn't look the biggest guy in the world, does he?
No, it doesn't. I mean, that's an Everton picture, as I've said already. Born in 1866 in, I can't even pronounce this Welsh town village, Rossimedra. He died in Wrexham in 1943 and played for various clubs, including Everton, Chirk, Ardwick, who were the precursors of Manchester City, Sheffield, we've mentioned, Manchester City itself, and Millwall Athletic, Reading City again, Stockport, and retired in 1905. He was our very first international, listeners. There he is, Joe Davis. Now I'm going to go back one because I'll just put this is the numbers of caps, Neil. I've got all this information from millhistory.org.uk, which is a wonderful website. I put a little credit on there, listeners. These are the numbers of caps from each of these nations. And it's quite incredible. Sorry?
Where's England?
I've missed England off, haven't I? Well, I've got the 10 caps for England. I've missed England off, listeners. How about that? That's me. Fell on my feet, fell on my nose. England's 10, so we'll be behind Antigua and Barbuda, in front of Barbados. 10 for England. I was really struck by how many caps from the island of Ireland, if I can put it, if that's the right way to put it. 121 caps from the Republic and 87 from Northern Ireland. That's an incredible contribution to our club. That is, when you compare that, Neil, with Scotland, and then right down the bottom, they just won more than Algeria, 2 Scottish caps. And we'll come back to those Scottish caps at the end of our conversation.
Yeah,
Quite a contrast, isn't it?
Well, considering our history with Scotland, and how the club was founded and how Bob Hunter used it as a fertile recruitment ground for many, many years, I would have thought the Republic of Ireland, the vast majority of them would be down to Mr. Ford and Mr. Dunphy.
Mr. McCarthy helps as well.
Mr.
But yeah,
would have dumped 1 or 2 in there, I guess, and Ford and Dunphy.
Fordy a lot. Dunphy for many, many years was our highest capped international. Silly me, listeners. Yes, I've missed out England. We do have 10 caps, mostly pre-1938, and I'll come on to 2 most recent England caps in this presentation here. But yes, 121 Republic of Ireland caps, 87 Northern Irish caps, a lot of those Shane Ferguson, incredibly. Again, another name we'll mention. 43 Welsh, 34 Canadians, 34 Canadian caps. That's incredible as well, isn't it?
Have you actually taken George Savile's cap last night into account of all of this?
It will be. I haven't included that. This is going from the. I don't think it's been updated yet, so he must be getting close to Shane Ferguson though, because he played last night. You're right, and I think when I checked, let me just get it on my iPad. Listeners, keep talk amongst yourselves for a moment whilst I do this. George Savile 25 caps, so maybe that's 26 now. So and Shane Ferguson is 29 for Northern Ireland. So he's getting close, and he'll almost certainly surpass that, and he'll become.
Yeah, that's a fair point, isn't it, between the 2 of them? And I would have thought that Canada would Siriu might have won 1 or 2. Josh Simpson.
Siriu. Let me get to Canada. Iceland will be one person in particular. Mark Bircham, 12 caps. Asia and Siriu, 7. Josh Simpson, 11 caps for Canada. Simeon Jackson. Anyone remember Simeon Jackson out there?
Simeon Jackson. That's one. Yeah, when Matt Richards has just said Bircham, I'd completely forgotten that he's qualified for Canada. I don't ever think he'd been there, had he? It was one of those
only Canadian club whiskey. Chris Twardek, another name I'd forgotten. One of the strange parts about doing this kind of research, listeners, is that you come across names like Simeon Jackson. I'd forgotten he even played for us, but he's 2 caps for Canada in 2014. Chris Twardek, 2017, 2018, and so it goes. USA is primarily Casey Keller, but also John Kerr. John Kerr scored of the first goal at the New Den. So there we are. Scotland, just 2, and we'll come back to them by the time we move through our presentation. There's Joe Davis. We mentioned Joe already. Len Graham. Silly me for forgetting the English 10 caps for England, but I didn't forget our 2 most capped English players, one of which is Len Graham, twice capped for England, 1925. And there is Len standing in front of the open halfway line terracing, 1925. Wearing what looks like a polo neck jumper, as they used to back in those days. It must have been horrible.
That would have been a training top, I believe. Would that have been a training top?
Yeah, heavyweight stuff, wasn't it? Our first English cap, Neil, was Herbert Banks, and I think we did a show on Herbert Banks in the course of our history podcast we did a year or 2 ago. So that was in 1901. 1s and 2s, and then we have, after Len Graham, we have J.R. Smith, 2 caps and 2 goals for England in 1938, and those 2 games were against Norway in a 4-0 win at Newcastle. He scored 2 goals in that, and also then in a 7-0 win against Northern Ireland, played in Manchester, also in November 1938. So I think the lesson for me, Neil, for England, if what's it? It's not Southgate anymore. I can't think of Carsley. If Carsley's listening to the show, and he almost certainly is pick a Millwall player and we start to win by big margins, 4-0 and 7-0. Because last time we did that, those were the results. But there he is. He also managed this. J.R. Smith, didn't he? He was manager.
Yeah, one of our finest interwar players. But I think you also have to mention, and you've not put him up there, Jack Sutcliffe, who was the last England football and rugby union international.
You mentioned him on when we did the show before. Yeah, 1903.
So he should be up there.
She played against Wales in 1903. I've only included where they played as a Millwall player for the various nations, listeners. And, as you go through these, obviously some have gone on to greater things elsewhere. But there we are. J.R. Smith and Len Graham, 2 England players, Millwall players as well. And I love that shirt. That's a great cigarette card image of J.R. Smith there.
That's actually a great full stop, I think. That is actually a fantastic shirt. And the badge is a great badge.
I used to have that. You could buy those off the tops. They're reproductions, of course, but it was it was like a rugby shirt, Neil. It was heavy to wear it, but it was wonderful shirt. You could turn the collar up like JR's got there. You walk around with a bit of an elan around the streets of Bermondsey rather than that West Ham shirt I've got to put on in October. There we are. Going to move us along now. This is Malcolm Allen, listeners. Older listeners will remember Malcolm Allen, a great striker, Neil. 7 caps for Wales as a Millwall player. Yeah, absolutely really hungry and properly aggressive as a striker. Just what you want. And he played for Wales between 1990 and 93 as a Millwall player. No goals against for him in that period. I think he must have scored other situations for Wales, but not as a Millwall player. And he came to us from Norwich, if memory serves. He was a really, really strong striker. He won a BAFTA, or he's nominated for a BAFTA award. And the reason he was nominated for a BAFTA award, listeners, he's a fluent Welsh speaker, and he does the kind of fill-ins and Welsh commentary on the Welsh language, S4C, I think it's called.
Yeah.
So he was nominated for a BAFTA. I can't think of many Millwall players or Millwall people, other than fans, that have ever been nominated for a BAFTA, but he was.
Fantastic bloke as well. If you ever speak to him, Malcolm Allen, a fantastic, down-to-earth guy who's good fun, and he was a tremendous player for us. Did he end up going to Newcastle or somewhere like that? And
he moved on. We were selling at that point, weren't we? It's a shame. We still broke up with a very good side in those very early years of the 90s. But there we are. Let's move along. I've got another Welshman because equal was Steve Morrison, 7 caps for Wales during his early period, 2010 to 11. I do remember him playing for Wales against England. I think it must have been at the Millennium or the Principality Stadium, I think it's called now.
I remember that.
And he was up against John Terry, and I think I still hasn't quite got out of John Terry's top pocket, I don't think. But it was nice to see him play. David Rouse, who's going back to our earlier subject there, Neil says both of them, that's Gallen and Harris, should grow up and work together for the benefit of our club. I agree with that, David.
Absolutely. I think that is, but that's what we should be working towards.
Yeah, it's unseemly, listeners. I mean, I know we all like a good row at Millwall. I mean, like a bit of a soap opera, but it just struck me as a bit unseemly, that whole situation. And I'm glad it's past us now. So, yeah, I agree with that, David.
Play for Wales. He's about as Welsh as me.
Yeah, well, this is the grandparent rule, isn't it? And I think that it produces some ludicrous situations now where even you mentioned Declan Rice in good circumstances earlier on, making that contribution to young boys' appeal. So well done to him. But I mean, he was a Republic of Ireland player, and he's swapped because FIFA rules allow it. And I just find it ludicrous that Tim Cahill, didn't he play for Samoa? And then he became Australian. So I don't know. It seems strange to me, but
Yeah, it goes back to Public Enemy #1, isn't it? What's he called? The silly twit that won't wear a poppy, who was born
James McLean. James McLean. Yeah. One of the most popular players ever to take the field at the Den. Always giving a warm welcome when he comes down there. That's for sure. I don't think he'll be coming down. He's drifted into the lower divisions now.
But I think it'd be between him and Lee Hughes, wouldn't
it? He's another popular player, wasn't he? Oh dear, there is. We've mentioned Shane Ferguson already, and I think, as we've said already, George Saville will be getting very close and will overtake Shane very soon. But that's quite a decent haul as a Millwall player. 29 caps for Northern Ireland from 2015 to 21, and there he is in his green shirt for Northern Ireland.
He's one of those players that's often gone under the radar.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that reflects that he was probably, but I know it's only Northern Ireland. It's not anything that special, but to play that
that's
many,
the whole province written off.
you know what I mean. You know.
No, I know. They're not contenders at the top table. That's right. Let's put it that way.
But to get 29 international caps over
pretty good.
A 6-year period isn't that bad, really, is it? They don't qualify for big competitions, and
no, that sounds pretty good.
So
that sounds pretty good. So I quite liked him. He had that kind of George Honeyman usefulness about him, where you're never going to say, really excited, I'm going to football day because Shane Ferguson's going to be playing. But at the same time, every team, every squad needs players like Shane Ferguson and George Honeyman in them, in that they do the hard grind. And it was always one of my. I quite liked him, really. I quite admired that quality in him, Shane Ferguson. So there we are. Move along. David Ford, 24 caps, 40. For the Republic of Ireland, 2011 to 2016, and I selected that picture because it's just one of my favourite all-time pictures. And this picture, for those listening on the podcast, it's of David Ford. I think we escaped relegation. I think this was like an end of season escape. I think with him with John Barrelson, both with cigars sticking out their mouths on the pitch at the Den. And I think that is actually Lurch just over the back there now without an Uber Eats on him. So
I was going to say
their photo.
Yeah, but that has to be 3 Millwall heroes in one picture. How good's that? But I wonder if he was on his way to pick up an Uber Eats.
He's almost certainly got the mobile going there, calling in a curry or something like that, I reckon. There we are, David Ford and John Barrelson, of course. Mark Bircham, we've mentioned already, and there's his lion tattoo. That must have been embarrassing at QPR when he takes his shirt off and he's got a big lion tattoo.
So it was Tiger, eh? Didn't he say Tiger? And then when Millwall went there, you got bird shit on your head, you got a lion
on his arm. He was a character, Bircham, wasn't he? He obviously teamed up in the classic era with Tim Cahill. He provided the bite, and Cahill provided a bit more bite, a bit more skill, perhaps. I quite like Bircham as a player. I used to, I never had a problem with Mark Bircham, but he was certainly a character and a personality. So,
mate, one of the funniest things ever in any fanzine used to be the Mark Bircham column in the Lion Rules. It was absolutely brutal. He destroyed everyone. Absolutely unbelievable column. And a couple of his podcasts are just, you end up with stomachache through laughing when he goes on about no curfews and things like that. But there's Matt Richards, decent player, but not first pick.
First pick. I think that's nailed on the head there, mate. Yeah.
Getting that to that.
But he played his part in a wonderful season. So big full respect to Mark Bircham. Lucas Neal, 10 caps. I've selected what I've done with this little presentation, listeners, is for each of the countries, as Millwall players, the highest numbers for each of these main countries, the home nations, and then the following on, the Australia and Canada. So our highest Australian capped player is Lucas Neil for 10 caps for Australia between 1997 and 2000. Wearing the South London pressure. I always like that shirt, South London Essex, with a golden line on the chest. A great shirt. I like Lucas Neil. He's a very skillful player. He kind of did Teddy and went on to a load of other clubs and claimed that he loved them as much as Mill. But I did like him as a player. Very skillful.
I thought he was underutilised.
Yeah, he was.
And it wasn't until he left. He was one of those players. He was always had the potential, but for some reason McGee seemed reluctant to use him for a period.
A little bit too much flair. I think he was a very skillful player. He knew it, of course. Everyone knew that he was good. He knew he was good, and I don't know that McGee was that kind of manager. He liked full on grind. He liked the Paul Moody grind, didn't he, rather than the Lucas Neil flair. But I do agree. I think we should have used him more. He moved on. He went to West Ham, went to Blackburn, various clubs. I think Ziane's going to be a Lucas Neil in the sense of moving around a number of clubs. Neil, I don't think he's. I don't blame players from other parts of the world, but they don't have any particular loyalty to any particular club. They just go there for a while, treat it as a job, and move along. Maybe all players do that. I don't know, but I think he'll be another one that goes to a lot of clubs, a bit like Lucas did in his day. That's my speculation, listeners. Casey Keller, our most capped American player, 12 caps for the USA, 1992 to 1996. USA.
Easily in our top 5 goalkeepers post-war.
Tremendous goalkeeper. Absolutely brilliant goalkeeper.
What a goalkeeper he was. Great guy.
Yeah. Funny, witty, amusing.
Very, very clever.
Yeah.
I think, didn't he write his dissertation on Millwall and has never showed it to anybody, probably for fear of reprisals. But
he's intelligent.
Still speak very highly of the club. Still speak very highly of the fans.
He does.
And what a player he was! He picked up for a song and gave us brilliant service for 3 or 4 seasons. Didn't
I found a website. I think it was the Seattle a newspaper, Herald. I think. Anyway, the article about him, they described him as an American pioneer, which he was. One of the first to come over, and brilliant goalkeeper, physically strong, dominate his goal, everything you want in a goalkeeper, and he's our most capped American player. I do want to give another shout out to John Kerr, 6 caps for the USA in the early 1990s. We go through little phases. We have a lot of Australians at one point, and then we have a lot of Americans, didn't we? We go little bursts, then they don't come back. We haven't had a Canadian in a long time now.
Probably the best American goalkeeper since Sylvester Stallone.
He was good. He was very good. A good boxer too. Miscellaneous international players, because those were the highest cap players for each of those nations as Millwall players. So I picked out just a small selection of others. There he is, Najim Abdou, 18 caps for the Comoros Islands, 2010 to 17. There he is wearing the green and white shirt of the Comoros Islands, which is off the coast of Africa, listeners. If anyone doesn't know where, there's near this kind of island of Zanzibar, around that side of East Africa. French-speaking island, and Jimmy was one of.
It surprised me because he didn't play for them for donkey's years, and then all of a sudden he pops off an international duty to somewhere that nobody has ever heard of. Could probably not put a pin on it in the map or yellow on the map.
No.
And 18 caps probably belies he would have been their greatest ever footballer.
I suppose, a bit like we've had with the Serbian boy recently. the club will command a fair amount of influence, and maybe, I mean, Jimmy was a Plymouth player, then a player for us, and I imagine they didn't want him flying off to Comoros on pitches that may be wayward out there, listeners, facilities that could be not up to Football League standards, and so on and so forth. Maybe they just didn't want him getting injured out there. But apart from tournament play, I don't know. But wonderful player, one of my favourite ever Millwall players, Jimmy Abdou. He was just the expression they use in football is they've got an engine. He had an engine and a half. I don't know where he found his ability to run and run and run, and obviously featured in some of our biggest moments in recent years. So Jimmy Abdou, I had to include him on this.
Yeah, well, just a shame he couldn't pass the ball, really, wasn't it? Otherwise, he'd have.
Well, if he could pass the ball, he wouldn't have been a Millwall, would he?
Yeah, but he would have done what N'Golo Kante would have done, that kind of role.
Yeah, energy-wise, he had that kind of level, but no, it was passing. I mean, that goes for many players over the years, listeners. If he was better.
Yeah, well, just to say, I think that Jimmy Abdou's name it'll be one of those names that will stand the test of time. In 20, 25, 30, 40 years' time, people of this generation, the much younger generation, will still remember Jimmy Abdou.
Will they still remember John Daddy Budvarsson, Neil? 17 caps for Iceland, 2019-21. He had a mare of a period for us. He was actually part of the Icelandic side that did well against England. I think they beat us, didn't they? 2-1. Was it 2016, I think? Or was it the 2018? I can't remember now which one it was.
Must they have been if John Daddy Budvarsson won 17 caps? It is a sad day for international football. He might be a lovely guy, but I've got to say, if we ever we were talking about the time frame of Abdul be remembered. I think that John Daddy Budvarsson, and probably you might have somebody else coming up, I can't remember. They will be remembered
for all the wrong reasons.
All the wrong reasons. Yuri Skalak, I think, is probably.
I used to like the for reasons beyond me, the Millwall program when it existed used to always publish his name written in kind of like Icelandic runic script for reasons that beat me. Because I mean, what there's always written that kind of funny kind of Icelandic writing, as used by the Vikings all those thousands of years ago, when English did the job perfectly well. John Daddy Budvarsson, 17 caps for Iceland, 2019-21. One of the poorest signings in a long while. I love this picture of him cupping his ears to get back at the crowd that's been giving him stick.
He's the moment. Background,
I think there's a mixed fan club over the back there. I don't think he had many in his fan club. I've broken my rules here, listeners. I went for Tony Cascarino as our how many was it? 15, I think I read, for the Republic of Ireland. I just wanted to include Cascarino and Sheringham. 15 caps for the Republic of Ireland and 5 goals in his time as a Millwall player for the Republic. And Sheringham never played for England as a Millwall player, but I just want to include Teddy Sheringham just because it's my show. I can.
A man who should never have won one Republic of Ireland cap. I think he'd only qualified because he once had a pint of Guinness, a bit like a friend of mine, Sean Edwards, the rugby union coach, who played rugby for Ireland and hadn't ever been there.
No, I think as you say, it was the Guinness in the Orpington High Street pubs. It was about as far as he got to Ireland. But anyway, there it is. FIFA's rules are FIFA's rules, and he qualified. And I just have to. Superb strikers! What a classic duo! I don't think in my lifetime, I think some of the youngsters watching, I don't think we'll ever beat this as a duo. If we can beat it, then we'll be doing very, very well. But I just wanted to include Cash because he played.
If we can beat this, we will be at the top end of the Premier League table.
Champions League. Big shout out. Born Free, Die Free's just posted. Evening, gents. Only just seen. It's about time you did this, Nick. Going to go back and watch from the start. And then, meow. Well done. Born Free, Die Free, mate. Welcome to the show. Nick McCarthy, 19 caps for the Republic of Ireland. I'm just seeing as I'm looking at my screen. 22 for Eamon Dunphy as well. Mentioned Dunphy whilst we're in the action. Let's move along. Mr. Timothy Filliger Cahill, that's pictured when he came back to us, of course. Great player. I just wanted to get Tim Cahill in. I know that the return was a bit of a damp squib, but it probably was never going to be hitting the heights.
It was for a reason, wasn't it? Yeah, but he needed to play for somebody to play in the World Cup.
Fit. Yeah.
So I think it suited both parties. It was great publicity for the club. Unfortunately,
wonderful player, one of my favourite ever players, Tim Cahill.
I would completely go along with that, along with another Australian, Kevin Muscat, who I think.
Muscat's also. I'm just looking at the two players you mentioned. I mean, Cahill, 5 caps as a Millwall player for Australia. That would be in 2004. As a Millwall player, 4 in the first burst in 2004. Then he came back, of course, at this point, and he played in 2018 for Australia. In his time as a Millwall player, he scored 6 goals for the Aussies in their various qualifying World Cup games. He played at Craven Cottage for Australia versus Colombia, a friendly warm-up.
And he also didn't he break the Australian scoring record at the time? Didn't they have a game there against somebody?
Yeah, back as they had this thing of staging internationals in Europe for their European-based players, and they had one. I can't remember who it was against. Was it one of the African side? Then
I think we had a couple of African nations down there playing a couple of games, didn't we? Trying to tap into the local community down the old Africa road. Yeah,
wonderful player. We just wanted to include him because we're looking at Millwall International. There are many more listeners. This is by no means exhaustive, as you can understand. And finally, Neil, I've gone for our 2 most capped Scottish players. I'll invite listeners to, if they can think of who our 2 most capped Scottish players are. I did give away a slight spoiler at the start of our show to say there's only 2 of them, 2 caps, and those 2 players are
one of the worst goalkeepers, I think.
Mr. Jordan Archer, 1 cap, and Mr. Kevin Nisbet, who's just returned back to across the border, back up to Caledonia. I find it quite strange. I mean, we've said this before. We said it at the start of the show. Given the massive contribution of the 2 Irish sides, Ireland, Republic and Northern Ireland, 200 caps and some really, really good players. The fact we've never had any Scottish players, I just find really weird. And Jordan Archer and Nisbet at least has the benefit of being properly Scottish, whereas Jordan Archer, I think, is from somewhere like High Wycombe or something like that.
Yeah, but I think you'll find he's born in Walthamstow.
Well, there we are. That's the Scottish part of Walthamstow. So, it's just odd. I find that just it's a weird truth that that's the contribution of Scotland, apart from the founders and some of their managers, with a number of Scottish managers.
I've had this discussion with rugby fans. Personally, I could never ever represent a country that wasn't England.
No, I agree. I mean, I have no all the way back to grandparent level. It's all English for me, but I wouldn't feel any allegiance to anywhere else. I don't know how it would work. I mean, you must feel you'd have to feel some sense of connection. There's the boys that play for, is it Prince Boateng plays his brother plays for Germany and he plays for Nigeria, I think it is, or one of Ghana, I don't know. I would find that quite odd. I agree with you entirely. I think unless you feel connected to a country.
That play rugby for England and the island nations, it just wouldn't sit right with me to represent a country and to wear that country's shirt if it wasn't my country of birth. And just
I agree. It's a strange truth in football, but that's how it works.
Tourism, I think, is going to get even worse in football because they've now changed the rules, haven't they? That allows you to
swap, move about. I suppose you've got much more movement of people now. So you have a lot of youngsters with parents from different countries. The connection that you feel to those countries, I can't speculate on. I don't know, because it doesn't apply for me. But so I get the qualification to a certain level. I think going back to grandparent level can stretch it. I mean, we've mentioned Cascarino had never seen Ireland, and yet somehow has got a green shirt on purely because of the rules that apply. But I suppose you've got to draw a line somewhere, and that's how they do it now. There we are. We've done our warm-up, Neil. I think we've acted as a good warm-up compare for the main events now, which are probably going to be coming on other channels. At the end.
Please go and like them. No, then. This is behind the away end was the Speedway track.
That's right. And I did a little walk.
David.
Yeah.
Factory, if you know, quickly tell us. I did have a quick look online, but it's like 2,500 words, and so if anybody scrolling, I was trying to find out where the glass factory was. If anybody quickly knows where it was, or even if you know and you're listening to this or watching this later on, let us know, please, and we'll mention it. In fact, if we can find out, we'll mention.
I'll have a look. Absolutely. Brilliant stuff, Neil. I want to say big thank you. I dropped this on you like a ton of bricks out of nowhere this afternoon. You stepped up manfully to the plate. Big thank you to Neil Fissler for joining a very short, organised show today. And I still can't believe I've left England out of my list of caps there, but we are in there beneath Antigua and Barbuda and above Barbados. So life in the old dog yet. The one Algerian was, of course, Hamur Bouatsa. Anyone remember him? Hamur Bouatsa from a few years ago.
The Russian player would have been
Sergei Uran was a Russian. And the Czech, I can't believe it'd be anyone else having Jiri Skalak, but I'll have a quick look. Jiri Skalak, 28.
Would have been.
There we are, dear listeners.
Desperate that week. They must have been. They must have been scraping the bottom of the barrels to play.
It came highly recommended. Didn't he? And it's one of those situations where the promise isn't fulfilled. Let's put it that way. A bit like John Daddy. Anyway, there we are. We've warmed up the Millwall crowd for the big events elsewhere. Neil, I'll say a big thank you to you, mate. Let's do this again sometime. It was quite good. I enjoyed that.
We can actually have a little bit more notice. I might have actually completed a little bit more, other than come out with the odd inane comments every now and again.
Good stuff. Thank you for watching, dear listeners, and thank you for listening if you're listening on the podcast. Until the next edition, next week, from me and Neil, it's Arrivederci Millwall, and bye for now.